I want to talk about AI. AI is something that is as
Terrifying?
certain as the automation of making automobiles back in the 1920s. Okay, whereby the biggest fear back then was people losing their jobs and never replacing. And it turns out it worked out great. AI holds immense promise in terms of what it can do with certain companies. This next company, and we got this referred to us by, I think, a viewer who contacted Greg, our executive producer, and said, you got to get this company called Poet Technologies on the air. And because Greg is such a big shot, and he appears on a national television program every day.
Very important.
He got the chairman and CEO of Poet Technologies. Their stock symbol is P-O-E-T, P-O-E-T, just like the word poet. And Poet powers AI. Suresh Venkatesan is our guest today, and he joins us via Zoom. Dr. Venkatesan, may I call you Suresh? Great to see you today, and thanks for coming in. Can you talk to us just top down for the Johnny Lunch Buckets of the world that don't understand AI, how this is going to change our world?
Yeah, for sure. First of all, terrific to be here on the show with you. So I think it's great to have the opportunity to talk about what we do at Poet.
Well, thanks. Thanks for coming in.
Listen, AI is, it's ubiquitous, right? And one of the things that we see with AI particularly, is it kind of breaks down into two categories. One is called training, and the other is inferencing. But really, the big growth right now is in training, and people have these large language models that they're sitting and training these machines, right? So that when you type something into ChatGPT, it understands what you're asking and then can query that against an immense database and provide you with, reasonable responses. And these large language models use billions, hundreds of billions of parameters, right, that you have to be training them. So that is a lot of data. So what we're finding is that as companies do more and more with AI, they're obviously consuming and moving large amounts of data across their AI clusters, and that's where fundamentally Poet comes in. And what happens is when you have to move a large amount of data, the most efficient way of moving that data is to use light as the medium of communications. Think about it like in your home. You have a Wi-Fi network, and
Sure.
Wi-Fi is using microwave or RF, right?
Right,
So, and
right.
you have this little box in your closet or whatever. It's taking electrical signals and converting it into RF, and that's transmitted in your house, and data is transmitted that way. Similarly, in large data centers, electrical signals are converted into light, and then the light is transmitted, obviously at the speed of light, right? And it connects all of these servers that are in these AI data centers. So it's kind of a problem that kind of cascades. First, there's a need for immense amounts of data, therefore a need for transporting that data using light, and therefore technologies that can efficiently produce these quote unquote Wi-Fi transmitters, right? What we call transceivers in our field. Efficiently, and in a low-cost manner. And so that's what Poets does. So we have a manufacturing solution that can produce these transceivers, at immense scale and using very low-cost semiconductor technologies that then, obviously power the AI networks.
And you speak about power.
Underlying it.
You're speaking about power. I'm assuming you're saving energy.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely. It's so typically like back in the day, data was transmitted using electricity. And when you're transmitting with electricity, you consume a lot of power. But when you're transmitting through using light, there's not much friction, right? So there's not much heat generated, and you can dramatically lower the power consumption in these AI systems. So there is a push and a need for obviously reducing the amount of power that these data centers utilize. And one of the ways to do that is to convert more and more of the electrical links into optical links or light links that consume much less power. That means more demand for these solutions that use light, which means better manufacturing techniques that are needed to make them in high volume and low cost, which means using POET's technology, right?
So, Dr. Suresh, who and what industries make up your client base?
We are primarily serving, large-scale data centers that are putting together AI servers, right? So these are hyperscalers like eventually the Googles, the AWSs, the Metas of the world, that are consuming these optical transmitters like they're M&Ms, right? And so, we are coming up with technologies that allow us to manufacture these transceivers or transmitters at an extremely low cost. So our industry is, I mean, it is esoteric. It is in data communications, which is, providing optical data communication links. That's our industry.
But it's
And our,
but it's also infrastructure. You're creating an infrastructure where none was before. I mean,
Absolutely, it's hardware infrastructure.
If you're the backbone, I mean, you're in the right place at the right time, I would suggest. Correct?
Yeah, we've been developing this technology since about 2018, and back then people were like, oh yeah, we don't really need something like this. And they were probably true because the scale and the volume of optical data communications wasn't nearly what it is today. Today, AI is going to happen. AI is going to drive the need for new solutions. And solutions like the ones Poet has developed and provided are now becoming more and more mandatory, in terms of being able to build these really, really high speed systems.
One of the things that's interesting here is that best practices in your business wasn't even known, let's say back in 2016, right? Mm-hmm. So you had this sort of, I'm going to say clumsy sort of way of integrating everything from lasers to waveguides and so on and so forth. And what you've done is created a more elegant sort of best practices for the industry, which in turn could end up being the backbone of the entire industry if things go correct. Am I assuming that could be part of the arc of the story?
Yeah, that's correct. If you look at the arc of development in photonics, which it's very, very different from electronics. So electronics are, of course, manufacturing processes that make microprocessors, right, or graphics chips or what have you, and they're built on large semiconductor wafers. They're built hundreds of chips at a time, thousands of chips at a time, using kind of advanced semiconductor manufacturing techniques. Photonics or optics, it's akin to building one chip at a time, using a manufacturing process. And so it doesn't really have the economy of scale in terms of either cost or just sheer volumes it's trying to put out. And so what we've done at Poet is to try to apply the tried and tested methods of manufacturing semiconductors and applying it to the world of photonics. And in so doing, creating a manufacturing infrastructure that is able to scale with the demands of AI.
I think what excites me most about this is that AI is going to change everything, but we don't know what we don't know. I think you know what we should know. So what are you most excited about going into 2025 and beyond, not only for AI, but for your company?
Yeah, I think, AI, I think going forward into 2025 and 2026, I believe AI is, the killer app for AI is, I mean, people are still trying to figure out what that is, right? So there's, of course, a lot of hype around AI, with ChatGPT, large language models, but there are going to be these killer apps where, for example, efficient code writing and, and just generally increasing the efficiency of people, productivity, right? Like you brought about automobiles right at the beginning. It's kind of interesting when you look at automobiles at the very beginning when auto came up. I mean, Ford created a manufacturing assembly line, that didn't exist before. And so he did that because he saw a need for a large number of automobiles, and he felt that the manufacturing process to make these automobiles had better change. Otherwise, there was no way he was going to be able to manufacture those number of cars. That's what we've done in the world of photonics for AI. So I feel a couple of things. AI is just going to grow and proliferate, and there are going to be some interesting killer apps that we can't even conceive of today, right? And that's typically what happens with technology. That makes it ubiquitous. And when that happens, there's going to be a big growth and we're there to provide solutions to support that growth. Right, we're providing products using semiconductor technologies, utilizing what we call our proprietary optical interposer platform to create these solutions for the AI space that can meet the requirements for cost, size, scale in terms of volume, energy efficiency, and all of the things that matter.
You're an enterprise-wide solution. His name is Dr. Suresh Venkatesan. Dr. Venkatesan, will you join us again? We could have you for a whole hour here and talk to you. I think it's fantastic. I hope you come back with us. His stock symbol, POET. POET, of course, Poet Technologies. We'll hear more from him, I can guarantee you that. Big Biz Show continues, bigbizshow.com.